to the Everyday Board Game Podcast with Daniel.
And Daniel.
Welcome, Daniel.
How's it going?
We haven't been filming for a couple hours already. No, never. We've never done that before.
Talking about horror movies for some odd reason.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was showing off the 3D print thing. Like the 3D printing, you know, I'm gonna go on a tangent already. It's very good for our hobby, but I don't find it incredibly useful. Like, so I have a 3D printer. I absolutely adore it. I got it for Father's Day last year, and so I'm gonna give an example. I printed this 3D little treasure chest, right? And inside of it, you have a silver die, you know, and some gold coins, right? And it's like a little party game that I came up with a while back, and I made a Super Mario version of it with the coins, from Super Mario, and outside of that, like, there's a lot of inserts, but the thing is, I like using the dollar store inserts. Those are really good, and if the game doesn't need those inserts, and it probably has a good insert anyway, or a 3D printed one that takes hours and hours to print, it's hard to justify using one anyway in the long run. I printed one for War Chest, and that was pretty good because that needed it. You know, the token trays in there, it just doesn't fit unless you have that in there. That's a good example, but mostly I don't print components or pieces. Like, I'd rather either buy upgraded bits or like for actual gameplay stuff. Like, there's not really a good reason functionally to print things. So I don't know, it's weird. I thought I'd be printing like board game bits like crazy, but I just don't.
Yeah, no, instead you buy them.
Yeah, instead I buy. Well, I also don't play miniatures games, so yeah.
No, I get it. I like some of the stuff, like the thing that Bryce was telling me about. Because spoiler, one of my Christmas gift was he's printing some stuff out for Gloomhaven itself, the base game, and you did as well. But he was telling me that all the whole parts of this entire thing that he's doing, just that little part, if you print everything, it turns itself into a 3D printed insert for Gloomhaven.
Yeah.
Which, I'm not going to lie, if you have a chance to get an insert for Gloomhaven, get it.
Yeah,
because it just makes your life easier.
Right.
You can 3D print it. The only thing is, it'd be really expensive if you're 3D printing it, because that's a lot of filament for that box.
It's cheaper than an insert.
No, I know. I figured it'd be cheaper than an insert, but still, it's still a lot of filament. It's
$20.
I think if you could get the folded space one for Gloomhaven, I think it's like $50, and that's including importing.
Honestly, I've looked into that Gloomhaven one. I don't think it's more than a total of 1 kilogram of plastic, which is a lot of plastic, and that's only one spool. So you're looking at only like $20.
Yeah, I get it.
It's not that
I would
bad.
like it if I got a 3D printer. That's what I would do. I would use it for inserts per se, especially for like the bigger games, or even the games that you have where you're trying. Like with me, as you can see my walls here, I have all my expansion boxes in here because I only have so much shelf space, so I condense a lot of my games into one box and try to. So I found a use for my expansion boxes, or in case of this one, I don't know if you can see it. This is Role Player, because I got the big box for Role Player. I put it up on the wall.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, the only two inserts, I've only ever printed 2, and 2 of them were, or technically 3. I printed a token holder for Splendor. That one works pretty well. War Chest, that was pretty necessary. And I have Werewolf, or One Night Ultimate Werewolf, Daybreak, and Vampire. I have all 3 of those. And otherwise, you can't organize everything, and then the tokens don't line up. So that made perfect sense. And the only other one I'm considering is you can get a 3D printable token tray for Century Spice Road that will hold all 3 games in one box.
So
and
that's something I want to do for Century Golem that we're talking about, because you use the same gems for every game.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, exactly. So you don't need multiples of those. Yeah. So that would probably be a good one. So anyway,
my only thing is I would like to get like a big box of Century, just where I could store all 3. This way I can put the entire artwork on my wall.
Yes, right? That'd be cool. Or even if the big box had like the side of the art, like on the side of the boxes, so everything's just kind of like culminated together. Yeah, that would be cool. Anyway, so let's get on
Back
to
to
our top
topic.
10. Yeah, let's get on to our
What are we
top
talking
10.
about today?
Today we are talking about networking and route building games. These are games that utilize building paths between different spots and how well they do so. Now, that has to be one of the mechanisms for it. Some of these games are definitely route building, like you'll have Ticket to Ride in this list,
Mhm.
obviously. But some of them are a little more abstract, and we'll clarify that as they come up
Yeah.
and why they are. And I think that might also be a factor while we're debating it too.
And so the thing is, for everybody who hasn't heard our top 8 debate stuff, we
Mm-hmm.
get these through Board Game Geek's sections. So it has to have a section for it on Board Game Geek. This way you can find it. This one is specifically network and route building. So if you don't agree with these games being on this list, hey, that's not our fault. This is where we're dragging it. This way you can go and look.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we also then categorize everything by rank for all the viewers and or not from the viewers, but from all the ratings that are on Board Game Geek, and
Mm-hmm.
we take the very top ranked games that Daniel and I have both played. Now that's important because if him and I have not both played it, then one side is going to be a lot more boring as we're trying to debate it. We want to give it each its own. So if you don't see one of your favorite ones on there, it's either it wasn't ranked high enough or one or both of us have not played it.
Played it, yes. Also, want to get mentioned before we get going. We mentioned it in the last podcast that we just recorded, the Chits and Giggles. But I'll go ahead and mention on here because sometimes people may just want to listen to the top 8 debate and not our discussion topic. So we are aware there were some audio issues when we recorded last week.
Mm-hmm.
That was due to the fact that the computer decided to switch mics on my mic and wasn't picking up the one I used specifically. It was using my onboard mic on the computer. It should be fixed. We have checked it, and it seems to be going pretty well.
Cool. And so let's talk about how we actually rate or rank these games when we're playing or when we're arguing for each of our sides. We have 5 categories that we do this on. And basically it's like a best of 5 or 3 of 5. Whichever game has more of these categories than the other moves on to the next round. And those categories are ease of play. Basically speaking, how likely are you going to get it to the table? How easy is it going to be to learn? And how simple are the mechanisms to get into the fun instead of worrying about rules?
Mm-hmm. The next one we have is replay value. That means how long is it going to take to get the full experience of the game? How long? How does it work from 2 to 6 players, depending on the full contingency, the length of the game, which means it would be how more likely would it be to get to the table. And finally, what is the third criteria on that one? I don't have my list pulled up.
Additional content.
Content, yep. The rule about additional content is as such. It needs to either have already made expansions that we can discuss. It needs to be one expansion that we believe is going to happen.
Yep.
Case in point, we always mention this about Shy Pluto for Space Base.
Mm-hmm.
It's volume 1, so we're assuming there's going to be a volume 2. We don't know yet because it hasn't been announced. Or, as I mentioned earlier, we don't know yet because it hasn't been announced. They have been announced by either the publisher or the game designer.
Yeah, and it has been confirmed. Exactly. Our next category is a very simple one. Art and production. How good does it look? How well are the components made? And does the graphic design help you in your experience?
Next one on my list here is meaningful choice. And this is important because we're going to talk about something similar in the other topic. And it's impact on other players' strategies and impact on players' long-term strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means is anything you make choice-wise in the game, how does it affect the other players in the game, as well as how does it affect your gameplay?
Right.
Or can I just flip a card and it's an arbitrary choice? Oh, look, this happens. This is what I'm doing then. So that's basically when it comes down to meaningful choice.
Yep. Like, I've built all this stuff up and roll a die and I lost. Yay!
Yeah.
Yeah, which can happen. And then the final one is game immersion. How well does that theme of the game match the mechanisms that we're talking about? What kind of table talk do we have back and forth between the players? And lastly, one of the most important things is, which game lends itself to have more stand-up moments? Which ones are going to make you go, ah, that was amazing?
And I know that last one is subjective to
Yep.
every different player,
Sure.
but it's important for that fact. You're going to get more people, that we talk about it all the time, we're Feld fans. Most Feld games is going to interact where we're just sitting there,
Yeah. And we're honest about it, too.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of, like, just us sitting silent for a while. Now, granted, we have a lot of internal fun, but that's not going to sell the game. If you walk by a group looking so stressed about it, that's not going to
Or
convince
like an
somebody
entire
to
table of
do that.
5 just sitting there thinking rather
Yeah.
than talking and interacting. Because what board games are for mostly is to bring people together and play games and have fun.
Right.
And sometimes people walk by and go, that doesn't look like fun. That looks like homework.
Right, exactly. Oh, are you playing an Excel spreadsheet? What is it? Yeah, no, but like if for on the other end of that, if you're playing like a pirate themed game and people are like, yeah, and like really getting into the character of it,
Yeah.
that's a good sign. That's gonna get you immersed. I'm gonna give an example. There was a game at a convention a while back. I don't even know if I ever told you about this, but are you familiar with LARPs? Live action role play.
Yes, those are the ones that play with the swords in the park.
That's a good example of a LARP. Yep, and but there's a lot of different ones. There are the live action role playing. Like there's corporate LARPing. Like I kid you not. But that's not what I'm talking about.
I know. I like to say the swords in the park because it reminds me of a stupid funny movie my wife showed me.
Right. There was one LARP that I heard about. I didn't get a chance to see, but everybody was a over the top professional wrestler, and they were LARPing, and you could be like the guys with the masks. You could be luchadors.
Luchadors.
You could be like there was one person who was honestly just a bear. Like they just go in there and they're mauling people. Like,
honestly, I'm
so
not surprised
ridiculous.
because back in the day, you had wrestlers wrestling bears.
Yeah, exactly. It's so I've heard. I rarely do I hear about games and I'm in tears laughing so hard. Just not even seeing it, just hearing about it. That was a good example.
Would have loved just to see that. I used to be a huge wrestling fan. Just to see
Oh, yeah.
a LARP of it would
Mhm.
make me giggle like a schoolgirl.
It did me. So yeah, when we get a chance to see it, we will. So before we talk about the top 8 of which ones are ranked, we have a few honorable mentions that we would like to talk about. Ones that were added to the list and ones that we've picked that we felt would be really well on this list, but once again, either one of us hadn't played it or it's not ranked high enough. So
Yeah.
let's
And
talk about the
so,
viewers.
We do have one from the thing, from the poll. So do you want to add it? Talk about it.
Sure. That is Council of Four, a friend of ours named Nate. He added Council of Four into the list. Now, I have not played it. I've seen it played. It looks pretty interesting, but I don't remember much about route building in it, though. I may be wrong.
I'm not sure. I've never played it. I've heard of the name. I have not looked into it, so I wouldn't know too much about it.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So, but Council of Four. I mean, that got voted up. It's already halfway up there with his vote.
With the rest of them, mind you, we normally put a poll ahead early, but again, we were busy, so we just tried to get it put up. This way, we have some votes because one thing we forgot to mention about our criteria: the fan vote is the tiebreaker.
That's absolutely right. So if you and I just can't decide and we can't give way, we're standing in our heels. That's gonna be why. So good point. And so that was the honorable mention. Daniel, would you like to take the first one, or should we flip a coin?
We should do the flipping of the coin thing because I'm actually looking up Council of Four just to get a look at it.
That sounds good. I will get a coin. Do you want to stick with tails like we were in our previous?
Yeah, let's stick with tails.
All right, so let's talk about our number 3 honorable mention. And as I drop the coin completely out of view, and I have no idea, heads it is. I will talk in one moment. All right, I have retrieved said coin. My number 3 route building game uses route building in a very important way in this game. It is only route building, and it is Kahuna, a 2-player island-based route building game from Thames and Cosmos. I absolutely adore this game because you have a bunch of different islands. You are playing cards to build routes on it. Now, very simple. You can either play, I think, 2 different cards or 2 of the same island for any of them to build an island. Oh, no, I'm sorry. You could play, like if I played Kiki, which I think is one of the islands, I could build any one of the bridges that's branching off from that into an adjacent island. And so Once you have a majority of the bridges on the island of your color, then you gain control of the island. But then you can also destroy other people's bridges by playing two of the same card to destroy that, thus making them potentially lose control. However, you can also, if you gain control of an island that has my bridges on it, all of mine get destroyed immediately. So that might make me lose control on other ones. And it's a really brilliant game. The first round, whoever has the most gets 1 point. Second round, whoever has the most control of islands gets 2 points. And then the third round, whoever has the most gets points equal to the difference of islands they control. And I think that's a brilliant scoring mechanism, first off. I think that's really smart. So somebody, if they do really phenomenal in the last round, they're not out. They still have a shot. And and odds are, if you spent that much time into the first 2 rounds really pushing, the other players might make a comeback, and it's very likely if you've done that much work. So I love Kahuna. It's one of my favorite 2-player games of all time, and that's why I picked it. So Kahuna.
Now, I remember playing this one with you. I need to play it again because it's been that long. But it is an interesting game.
Yeah.
I don't think I like it as much as you do, though. It is pretty, though. I have to say, it is a pretty game compared to the one I'm going to talk about. My number 3 on my number 3 honorable mention is Gold West. There's 2 reasons why it's number 3. It's not that pretty. It's fine for what it is.
Yeah.
It's got really nice production. I'm not going to deny that part, but the board in itself is just bland as can be.
It's a dry, dusty Euro. Absolutely.
Yeah. There's parts of it where I'm like, is this really route building? Is this really networking? And the only thing I can remember for sure that's the networking part is trying to get those little boards and trying to do it at the right time.
Yeah.
That little before someone else hit the stock market.
Well, you build adjacent to your houses.
Yeah.
So that's the route building.
It's there, but it's not the main thing. I remember the monk collar mechanism more than I remember the route building and the networking and stuff like that. It's fun. I did enjoy it. I actually won a copy of it that I gave to you.
Yeah. And thank you again for that. I do like that game. Dusty Euro.
You really enjoyed it. You had a good time with it.
Yeah.
I liked it, but it's not something that I'm going to be able to pull out and have my wife hang out and play that game because it's going to be like, really? You brought this to the table? kind of thing. So I get it. It's just not something that my other game group is going to have. And if I want to play it, I could just ask you to bring it over when the next time we meet up. So
yeah, absolutely. Good choice. Let's find out who talks number 2. This is a new thing that we just implemented. I like it personally.
Yeah, I like it.
My number 2 is an abstract strategy game that's route building, and you have a.
I'm gonna take a guess. Is it part of the whatever Yinch is in?
No, it is not actually.
Oh, okay.
It's a good question. The only one that's route building on that is Zert.
Well, that's why I asked because there's one of them that is.
Yeah, there is one. No, it's like Punked, I think is what it is. And honestly, that one's not very good. I really dislike that one compared to the others. The one I'm talking about is part of the 3M Bookshelf series. And that's definitely older, from the 60s even.
Yeah.
It's called Twixt. And the way this game works is, imagine a square board and a bunch of holes in it, and you're putting pegs down, okay? If any 2 pegs of yours are a knight's move away from each other, it's very specifically put away from each other. So they are 2 spaces in one way, 1 space in another direction. If they are there, you can build a little bridge between the 2. Your goal is to get a bridge from one side to the other side, however, or by branching all these Twixt pieces together. But here's the thing, since they're all elevated at the same height, you can't break through anybody else's line. So you're trying to not only kind of gain control of the area and work around your opponents, you're trying to make that connection across from it. Pure strategy game, looks ugly, very ugly. Oh my goodness, is it ugly.
Well, it's a 60s game, so...
Yeah, 1960s, and it's literally just pegs and some little plastic bridges that go between them. It's really ugly. But it's really an interesting idea. Like, you can't just make a straight line. You have to maneuver it around, and you can make multiple bridges with multiple pieces of yours. Totally fair. But blocking opponents' pieces in, do you stay on the inside? Do you go on the outside, try and get that bridge? Do you show your hand of where you're going? There's a lot of ways it can go, and I absolutely love it. It's called Twixt.
Interesting. I'd have to try it. I don't know if I would like it.
Well, you don't
Some of
like
the
abstract
ones,
strategies all that much,
no, I don't.
and this I don't
But
think is going to
remember,
win you over.
in our last podcast, my goal is to try to be open to new games, even if I don't like it. So, again, it's something I might want to try. I don't know how I'd feel about it, but at least I'm willing to try.
Yeah, you always try a game once, right?
Yeah, same thing that I tell my wife when it comes to like certain foods and stuff like that. I'll always try something once. If I don't like it, then fine, but at least I'll try it. I gotta be the same with unless I'm allergic to it. So like avocado, I can't have.
Right, that's a fair reason. But I don't think there's any board games that you're allergic to. Now, if we find an avocado board game,
Daniel McKinley games, I'm allergic to.
oh, ouch, ooh, ah, this guy has got jokes. He's got jokes. All right, what is your number two?
My number 2 is actually a game I enjoyed, and I didn't think I was gonna like it, and that's Karuba.
Oh, okay.
It's a very nice production game for being somewhat older. I don't know when it was. I think the aughts, maybe early tens,
Yeah.
2000s.
Well, no, it's not that old. It seems that old though.
Yeah, it looks that old.
Yeah, no, it's I want to say about 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, this is Rudiger Dorn, if I remember correctly.
I believe so. Yeah.
It's a nice production. I did enjoy it. It's an interesting concept of tile placement meets racing, because there's your route building. You're literally building your route. Someone calls out, hey, I'm using this, and you have to figure it out how to be the first one to get to certain points and stuff like that without running out of room. And I found that very intriguing. You're trying to get like to the blue pyramid or to the pink and yellow and the different color pyramids, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And you're trying to collect certain gems along the way too, maybe, but you're trying to beat everybody else to your thing, and you're trying to make sure when they're calling out tiles, you're putting them in the proper places so you can get all your people to the end of their certain routes. And I really did enjoy it. It's interesting. It's a nice little puzzle. It's, again, one of those things I don't need to buy myself because you own it. So if I want to play it, I will, but it's not something I need.
Cool. I like it. And our last one, my number 1 is... This coin has been worthless today. No, my number 1 is... it's actually a really important game for me. It's a very simple game. It's called 10 Days in the USA. And did you ever play this one, Daniel?
No, I haven't, but you keep talking about this one.
Yeah.
And I've heard other people, like, I know we brought him up earlier, but, like, Tom Vassell, he used to use this when he was living in Korea to teach America to Korean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's because all you have is a bunch of cards that have all 50 states. You also have additional cards that are either airplanes or cars. Cars can skip a state. Airplanes can connect 2 states that are the same color. All you're trying to do is start at one state, end at another, and have it be a continuous path between them. So if I had New Mexico as my first one, I could have Arizona, Colorado, Oklahoma, or Texas as my next one because it's adjacent. Or if I wanted to, I could put a car there and then skip a state. So I can go New Mexico, car, California, skipping Arizona. If California and Maryland are both blue, I don't remember what the colors off the top of my head, but let's say they are, you can put a blue plane between them and connect a path.
Okay.
You're drawing cards kind of like Gin Rummy, except you have 3 discard piles. You can take the top card of any 3 discard pile, or the card from the top of the deck. You must replace one from you have like little card stands, and you have 10 of them in a row, and you replace it from there. As soon as you have from day 1 to day 10, if it's complete, you win the game. Very simple game, made by Alan Moon, which we'll be talking about one of his games in a bit. You know, and this is one of my dad's favorite games, which is why it's really, really important for me. He actually sat with me probably about a year ago, and we played it probably like 5-10 times in a row. Like just and he would always claim, he's like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, and then he would like win. You know, like, I loved it. But he loved that geography of it. It was a very simple idea. He liked Ticket to Ride too. But there was something about this that I don't know why he enjoyed it so much, but it's now going to be in my collection forever. So,
Well, I don't blame you on that.
yep.
I haven't played this one. Isn't there a roll and write of it, like rolling through America or something like that?
No, no, they have made 5 versions. There is Rolling to, or there is
I
10
know
day,
the different versions because
yeah,
there's like
10
the
days in the
Europe one or something
USA,
like that. Well,
Europe,
because I just
Asia,
remember you
Africa, and
gave
you.
me a paper for like that has a map of America. So I was just
You're
wondering if there
thinking
was.
rolling USA or rolling Japan. That is
Oh,
the
okay.
roll and write version of it, but like those are. I suppose I could see the comparison between them. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Alrighty. So my number one is a game that you and I have both played, and we played together, and we got grumpy at each other. And that's because we played it late at night. It's not something you should be learning at 11:30 p.m. Can you guess what it is?
Um, I know which one it is. I can't say the name because I don't remember the name. It's right there, and we were like, we like this. All right,
The game is Yamatai.
Yamatai. That's it. Yep.
Remember what I said about Gold West?
Hmm.
This is the complete opposite of Gold West when it comes to production. This is Days of Wonder. So what
Yep.
do you expect?
Yep.
It's top notch, beautiful game, great production. The little temples, the wood pieces, beautiful. I need to play it more to know how I feel truly about it because I really like Five Tribes. I really like a lot of like Abyss more than I like this one. I have to say.
Yep.
And for me, it's one of those Catholic games that kind of got just lost in the shuffle. I mean, Days of Wonder, it sold pretty well when it came out and then just dropped off.
Yeah.
So, which is surprising because Days of Wonder games used to just stay for a while. We'll talk, like we mentioned, Ticket to Ride. Mm-hmm. That's still going. That's still people's favorites. We mentioned Five Tribes. That still has a lot of staying power. People are still playing it. I still see reference to it. You don't see much about Yamatai.
No.
And I think it's probably one of the prettier games that Bruno Cathala has ever produced or had produced for him.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know. I guess it's because it's really heavy compared to some of his other stuff. And so I just don't think it's got the love that it should. But I don't even know if I'm giving it the same amount of love because I only played it the one time. I enjoyed it, but I was also cranky while playing it.
We'll have to play it again. Absolutely. We'll bring it to a game day when we can, and we'll play it like 4 times in a row at like 3 in the morning, and then we'll really hate it after that. You ready to get into the debate?
I'm ready to get into the debate. So, do you want to tell us what is our number 1 seed?
All right, today we are doing our number 1 seed, Power Grid.
And it's going up against our number 8 seed, Turning Taxis.
Yay! Our number 2 seed, Underwater Cities.
Going up against a juggernaut, our number 7 seed, Catan.
That's right. Our number 3 seed, Istanbul.
Going up a very cute game, Takenoko.
And one game that I don't think gets enough love, Ticket to Ride Europe.
Did it just get an anniversary edition announced?
Yes, it did. Not enough.
Well, our number 5 seed going against another very beautifully produced game. Not Days of Wonder, though. Rajas of the Ganges.
That's right. Mark and Incas brand.
Going back to Ticket to Ride real quick before we get going. The reason why we have Ticket to Ride Europe rather than regular Ticket to Ride is because it's the highest rated game out of that series. We figure that they play pretty much the same overall. There are some little differences this one compared to regular Ticket to Ride, but we try not to put too much of the same game from the same series in our top 8 because we literally would have had 2 Ticket to Rides if we didn't do that.
Right, exactly. It would have been USA and Europe. Those are too similar, and it's okay. If you played one, you can understand the other fairly easy. It's just a couple of rules differences.
And so I do have to say, that 15th anniversary edition, I have to buy. That thing is beautiful.
I mean, considering I have the 10th anniversary of Ticket, I'm thinking about it. I really am.
I just like the little train stations. I thought those are gorgeous.
Oh, yeah. No, they're awesome. They are fantastic. I didn't look too much into it because I'm like, I don't want to know to buy this already. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. All right. So
flip your coin.
You ready to get into it? Oh, you want to do the coin flip for this instead of the
Well, we're gonna do the hat thing, but I need the who's gonna be the first choice.
Okay, so I will go first.
Power Grid versus Turn and Taxis.
Yep, both games.
I always want to add that extra S to Turn. Just
Turns and Taxis is. Stearns
right,
and Taxis is.
And thank gosh for this, Power Grid.
Power Grid. So let me tell you why Power Grid should go on. And I mean, really, it needs to go on in this category. Now,
no.
I like Turn and Taxis. You know how much I like my spiels. You do. And actually, that's up there now with like some of my favorite spiel. It's really good. I enjoy the mess out of it. But Power Grid is the route building game. You are building a power network. That's the point. It's in the title. You're building a power grid. That's the point of it. So it does a lot of things that I get why you don't like it, but it does a lot of really innovative things for the time. It's one of the older games on our list. It's actually almost as old as Catan. Oh, no, it's not almost as old. What am I saying? It's 10 years later than Catan.
I was going to say, no.
But Power Grid and Turn and Taxis are almost as old.
It looks like it's as old as Catan.
Okay, fair enough. But no, Power Grid, it's a really smart economic game where you are first auctioning off power grids, or I'm sorry, power stations, and then you have to build resources and buy them on a market that changes value. So the more I buy, the more expensive it will be for other players, or it might even completely run out. It's a really interesting factor on how that works. And then on top of that market simulation, then I have to buy stations in different cities and then pay money to network them together to other cities. It's a really smart game. Once again, I get why you don't like it, but it's one of the most strategic games on this list, hands down. If you make one mistake, you could lose the whole game, especially if you're against experienced players. The more you play it, the better you will be at this game. It's like chess. That's how strategic and how meaningful the choices are. That's not to say Turn and Taxis isn't, but it's fairly random in comparison to that. Because that's just card drawing. Oh, okay, that's it. But Power Grid, it really is heavy strategy. Now, I will give you that art and production is not as pretty. Turn and Taxis is not wonderful.
It's
either.
not a pretty game, but it's pretty.
It beats it. It's not as easy, but the meaningful choices, the replay value, like Turn and Taxis isn't going to change. It's the same thing over and over. But Power Grid, you can map off certain sections depending on the number of players.
Well, no, don't they have the Turn and Taxis? Doesn't it have the like the variable player powers that you can have, the council powers or whatever it is?
No, those are actions available to everybody.
Well, no, but I'm saying, don't they actually, you can change them with like different tiles or something on it? Or you can mix it, or there's something that changes. I just can't remember. It's been a while.
Yeah, no, not really, not in the base. Now, if we talk expansions though, Power Grid still beats it because Power Grid has countless maps. They've done a bunch of different things. They've done the Ticket to Ride method, where they printed a bunch of maps for a bunch of different countries. And on the base game alone, it has Germany and the USA on opposite sides of the map. And then you can buy extra upgrade packs. You can buy new power plants that like completely replace the deck. You know, there's a lot new resources that you can use to power different things. There's a lot going on, and I can see why they're doing it. And one of my favorite things about this, and why I think it's actually fairly thematic, at the end of the game, it's not who owns the most power stations or the most power plants. It's who, on that very last round, can power the most cities. Whoever can provide the most power on that turn alone will be the winner. So you might be able to trigger the game, but if I've planned it well enough and I can power more cities because of the resources I've planned, I get the win for it because I've built the power grid. I think that's brilliant. I think that's a really smart thing. It's an alternate ending to a game that would normally be even more dull. So I think Power Grid should honestly move on as far as networking because it really is the networking game.
What's weird is you're going over a spiel here.
No,
There's a reason why
spiel
Power
I
Grid
like.
weird the spiel.
No, and see, here's the thing. I like Power Grid. I do think I like Turn and Taxis better. In fact, I'd probably play that over Power Grid, honestly.
Oh, you know I would. And
I know you would. I'm saying it would rank
I
higher on
think
my
we've
list.
mentioned this before in
Mhm.
the podcast. I know we've mentioned it while chatting with the people on Twitch.
Sure.
And I have personal issues with it, and that is because remember how you were saying if you don't know how to play and you do something wrong, it leads to bad choices?
Okay,
Maybe if someone
yes.
taught us how the game was
Uh-huh.
properly played, we wouldn't have been sitting there for 4 hours.
Okay, yep. So what you're saying is you need to give it another shot.
Yeah, I probably will somewhere down the line, but I just...
Yep.
Oh my God, was that a bear? It really was. And I'm pretty much going to have to relearn the game, the mechanics of it. I remember it, but I have to relearn like the ins and outs of it,
Sure.
and it's going to be hard. And I have to say it. That cover, ew. But then again, that's mostly Friedman Freeze games. They have some of the ugliest covers. Literally, the cover looks like something out of the 60s. The production...
I mean,
is okay.
all it's lacking is just a bunch of people like acting really fun, like in the back, like I'm playing a game. It's like, why are they doing this?
It's bad. The production's fine. It looks okay. You have to literally buy the upgraded stuff to make it actually shine. Turn Taxis actually comes with that out of the box. It has some of the best resources for a game that's been around for a bit. You got to think. If it came out, I think what year did it win the Spiel? You should know.
2006, I think. I'm probably wrong on that, but
almost 15 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or is 15 years old. Yeah, so...
But, I mean, all that has is cards that show the region, and then you have your colored houses. That's it. It doesn't need more. But
it's still better production than Power Grid.
But, honestly, those colors are so...
As boring as it is, it's better looking.
I like the cover better, I agree, but the colors are more washed out and it bothers us because sure everything has a green overtone, but everything has a tan overtone in Turn Taxis, and that's harder for us to see.
Yeah, and so I'm not going to belay that. I already know Power Grid's going to move on, even though I can't stand the game because of just my personal experience with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to give Turn Taxis its shine. It has an interesting theme that you really don't see a lot.
Yeah, the German post office.
Mail routes.
Yep.
Mind you, it's German mail routes, so I don't know how it's going to translate really to other areas, but still it's interesting. Again, decent production for as old as it is, and there's a reason why it won the Spiel. It is a really fun game to play. However, honestly, I think it needs to be rethemed if they're ever going to reprint it, just to be relevant to more people.
I agree.
And it has to be more accessible to people. Right now, you can only get a German copy, and you have to find the English rules, print them out, and sometimes translation errors are going to happen, especially if it's not a proper translation from the company itself. So
right. I think they did make an English version. I don't own the English version, but I think they did make one. But
I heard it's only German.
Yeah, I might be wrong, but
the only thing that people made like PDFs for the English rules to translate it to English, but I heard it's only German.
Yeah, honestly, if this game was based, or if this debate was based on just which game has the most networking and route building, like this is number 3 for me. Like this, I really think, because obviously Ticket to Ride has the most networking and route building. That's just it. That's all. But then I think it'd be Power Grid than this, like, because I don't think any others like even come close to being route building and networking like Turn Taxis does.
Well, I don't disagree. I have to say Power Grid does move on. Outside my personal issues because of somebody. I also think Power Grid it's a little heavier than people expected. It looks like, oh, okay, this is going to go simple. It's really heavy. It's not easy for new players to get into it.
No, it's not. It's really not. But I believe Power Grid moves on. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
All right.
So much so that I'm already writing it. Oh, also got to mention, I close the voting once we start the arguing for that round. But if you want to find it on Board Game Revolution and vote, be more than helpful. Welcome to. So we have number 2, Underwater Cities, Catan versus Catan. The poll is closed. So let's move on.
All right. The first argument will be by it'll be by me again.
Sounds good to me.
Let's see which one I argue.
You get Catan. Man,
Okay.
you're getting all the classics.
I know, I get the old games. I mean, granted, Turning Taxis and Power Grid, like a classic either way. So Catan, it is route building also. It's a really heavy route building game. Now there's a reason it stands head and toes over most Euro games and why non-Euro gamers will play it. I get why people have like the oh I hate this game because it's like it's the new Monopoly. It's really not. It's a good game. It's solid because what you're doing is you're gathering the resources that are given to any player who has the stuff available. But what turns it on its head is instead of every other dry, dusty Euro, is it has that shrewd negotiation that you can make deals with people continuously and anytime that makes sense in the game where you say, look, I need a sheep. Do you want a wood? I'll give you 2 wood. Alright, how about 3? Like does anybody else want to give me a sheep like for less than that? Because he's the only one offering. Would you do it for 2 wood? Okay, here you go. And and that's why people still play Monopoly, honestly, is because
Yeah.
they don't like Monopoly because you roll and move a die and it's a random choice. They like it because you're auctioning and you're negotiating. You're saying, hey, well, if I land here, I don't have enough rent, but can you just take this property and like have it? Like that's fine. Like I mean, granted that's a house rule, but that's what people do, and that's why.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they like that negotiation. There are very few Euro games, and Underwater Cities is a perfect example of that. You're not negotiating in Underwater Cities. There are so few Euro games that have that negotiation that honestly I think it's a shame, and that's why Catan stands head and like it gets sold more. That's why people have heard of it. That's why it's in pop culture, is because of they know they it's now like second nature that like oh well I want wood for sheep ha 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 that's a meme now because of how popular it is. Now that's not to say I'm not saying it's technically better. You had an argument that Power Grid was more complicated. Underwater Cities is just as complicated as Power Grid was.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, granted, we're not going just based off of complexity and or simplicity, but we are just, that is a factor that we're going to have to worry about. So, that's why I say Catan is my vote to move on.
So, you're wrong.
Well, sir.
Alright, so I can't disagree with you why Catan is prolific, but I think when you're going down to it's in the pop culture and stuff like that, it's one of those things that it just captured at the right time. I think if Catan came out today, it'd get lost in the shuffle.
Okay.
And I think same with Monopoly. Monopoly caught on at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Catan, and you can look at it. The game that caught on at the right time now is Wingspan. That one is being as prolific, and I could see Wingspan staying along the same lines as Catan. That people are going to be talking about 10, 20 years from now, just because of how popular it became. It's that genie in the bottle. It's highly regarded for a reason. I'm not going to disregard why it's highly regarded, but it is for its time. It's just that it was new and amazing because there was nothing like it elsewhere. There's things that do what Catan did and better. You say you like the negotiation, they make a whole genre based on that. You like the trading, they do a whole genre based on that. It is a trendsetter. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the better network or route building game. Starfare's Catan proves that it's not even the best game in its line. They did more in Starfare's Catan that make that much more fun. I've played both these versions. I'd rather play Starfare's Catan.
Oh.
I played the game it's going up against, Underwater City. I'd rather play that over Catan because it gives that itch that you want. You want that route building. You want that networking. You're going to play, if you want those heavier games, if you like Power Grid, you're going to like this more than you're going to like Underwater Cities more than you're going to like Catan.
Yeah.
It's got a very interesting theme that does match its mechanic well because you are building cities underneath the water and connecting them to each other. That's your route building. You're connecting the cities. It fits better than some of Catan does.
No, Catan, it has a better theme to networking because the only way you can build cities is if you build your road far enough. But you still have to have that network going. You can only be connected to your other cities. That network can block other people. This is literally just I need a tile in between these two pieces, and then I'm allowed to build there.
Well, you're allowed to build one spot, but you want to connect it over here. You want to connect it over there. The network works because it's also going to give you your resources if these are connecting. Oh, I got this city built here. If I don't have it connected, I'm not getting the resources out of it.
Right, but that network doesn't connect, or doesn't like that doesn't influence other players at all. It's just literally like it's a requirement piece if you think of it that way, you know.
But the thing is, yeah, just because you're not interacting with the other players when it comes to making your network, you still want to be more proficient than others.
Right.
Networking isn't about blocking other players from what they're doing. Networking is being proficient about what you need to do for your game.
Sure.
You're talking about player interaction, which is fine. That's one of the topics we're talking about. But it's not the only topic we're talking about in these games. You are interacting with other people, yes, but you're not doing something away from them.
Right.
Or making them.
Yeah, no, the worker placement is the interaction. But what I'm saying, though, is that if you were comparing it just based on the mechanism, like, of networking, and I'm not saying that's the reason why Catan should go on. I'm just saying, like, if it was just down to that, then yeah, obviously Underwater Cities is less networking than Catan is. But no, I agree with what you're saying. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm just saying, like, it's like this is one of the loosest examples of networking, is what I'm saying. And this is probably the second least thematic networking. Yeah, second least thematic. I can think of one that I really strongly believe is less networking than...
The next game that we're going to be talking about is less networking than this one.
Yes, that's the one that I'm saying. That's the one. You and me are agreeing.
I should say both of those games on the next list are less networking than this one. Just because you're not interacting with other players when it comes to networking doesn't mean it's not there. This is networking and route building. You have to build a specific route as well when you're playing Underwater Cities, because you want to make sure your cities are connected to produce what you need to get things, to play your cards in the right spot, to play workers in this case, and then boost it with the certain cards. It's very well produced from CG, other than the fact that they put those little mint things in every game.
Yep, every game. It's a good piece.
They put it in a spelling game.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did.
Other than that, my thing is I'd rather have Underwater Cities move on.
Okay, so then that's...
Going through our list here, looking at the criteria, Catan moves on.
Not necessarily. Well, let's think about it. Ease of play is Catan.
Easily.
Art and production is Underwater Cities.
Easily.
Meaningful choices, I feel, is Underwater Cities.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Replay value.
Catan.
Probably Catan, yeah. But then immersion, I would probably say Underwater Cities. I mean, it's... You're building the
that's
technologies.
where I think Underwater Cities loses his game immersion. The game itself of Catan forces the table talk.
Yeah, but I don't... But I feel like...
And the player interaction.
With the robber, huh?
And, honestly, the memorable moments, too.
Yeah, because of the robber.
Well, not just the robber, or just... when I played Starfarers, I can remember people going... and this is just Starfarers, I'm not talking about that, but like when the black thing just kept coming up and I had to keep doing all the scenario stuff. The robbers there, the people interacting, well, why wouldn't you give me the sheet for 2 wood, but you sold it to him for a stone? I was going to give you 2 wood. Well, I didn't need wood at the time.
Yeah.
And then when it comes back around, all right, I got this. Anybody got wood? Oh, now you want wood.
Oh, now you want wood. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay. Well, then... Let's go ahead and bygones be bygones. Let's put Catan on.
That's going to be interesting because it's actually going to go up against Power Grid.
Yeah, 2 very different games.
Yeah, very much so.
Our next argument, so you're going to lead us off.
Number 3 versus 6, which is Istanbul versus Takenoko.
You're the one leading this one.
Huh?
You're leading this time.
All right. I have to do a quick refresh over here.
Sure.
This way I can close out the poll. And what's interesting about this is I have both pros and cons, like I always do for these games, but this more so than the others.
Right.
And I get Istanbul.
Okay. Interesting.
Yep. Let me just make sure nothing has changed. I'm not seeing anything. All right, cool.
Okay.
All right. Istanbul. It's a bland game. That's my main con of it. It's not pretty, mind you. A lot of these are pretty bland. It's going to go up. It's actually going up with probably one of the prettiest games on this list.
Yep.
And that's one of my major cons for it, but that's not a lot. There's a lot of this game that comes just in the base box, and we're not even including the expansions. I'm just talking about the replay value alone in the base box is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's a race to, I think it's 8, so that's something different too. It's one of the first games that I can remember.
5 or 6.
It's like, huh?
5 or 6, I believe.
Okay, 5 or 6. And it's basically, hey, how proficient are you to get your gems? Because it's the first one who hits this number wins.
Yep. And
I thought that was especially really interesting, especially first time. And we're talking about this. A lot of these games are relatively older. I think Rajas of the Ganges is the more newer one out of everything on this list.
Probably.
And that's what, about a year or two?
And this is another Rudiger Dorn.
Yeah, and I mentioned it earlier on my
Karuba.
honorable mentions. Was it Kabul or Karuba?
Karuba. Yep.
Yeah, so it's a very good game. A lot comes out of its base box. And what I really, really like about it is when we talk about like meaningful choices, this one lends itself to the most amount of meaningful choices that I've seen in a lot of these games, because I can do anything to get those gems. I just got to make sure I get them before you do. I can pay outright for the gems. I can turn this stuff in for the gems. I can go over here and do this thing for the gems. It's so interesting because it's what, a 4x4 grid or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah, I believe so. 4x4.
And what's interesting about it is when you're moving around the board, you're taking your workers and dropping them off in certain areas. And so you got to make sure you're being very specific how you do it, because you're going to have to pick them up eventually.
Yep, because
and can either... I think it's a phenomenal game. It's probably, out of everything we've talked about so far, is probably my second favorite that I got to talk about. I love Underwater Cities. You know this.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the better game. And the reason being, my biggest gripe with Takenoko, I can't play it.
Yep, the colors.
It is the worst uncolorblind friendly, really. Yep. It's the worst. The cards, certain bamboos look exactly alike for me, so I'm thinking, okay, I got the 3 that I need so I can grow this. Oh, those are 2 different colors. You've got to be kidding me, really?
Yep. Yep.
So, I think Istanbul is the better game, that it leads to a lot more choices, and I think it should move on.
Okay, that's fair. Takenoko, yeah, you were absolutely right that this is the prettiest game on the list. No, Istanbul's not super ugly, but it's nothing compared to Takenoko. Let's be honest here. Yeah, the pieces on there are beautiful. The panda is amazing. What this did is made a very interesting abstracted concept into a family weight game that works and is fairly thematic because of it. Now, I'm not immediately going to say that I think this should move on, because you know as well as I do that I don't generally like this game all that much. I've owned it, not a big fan of it. Istanbul, I love Istanbul. I am amazed at how much I like that, because it's a really solid game. I feel like there is more meaningful choice in that one as well. But that's not to say that Takenoko doesn't have meaningful choice in it. In fact, the route building is probably one of the best parts about this, is because some of your objectives is you have to irrigate certain areas and grow bamboo. You only do that by building out the blue sticks of water irrigation amongst that. Similar to something like Catan, but you're all working off of the same irrigation. The main tile is all blue, so that's all irrigated, but from that point you're going to have to start branching out. I think it's a really neat game. I don't personally like it that much because I don't like how you take 2 actions and then one action is determined by a die roll. I don't totally hate that, but like at the same time, I'm not a big fan of it.
If you're gonna do something like that, I mean, it takes one of the meaningful choices that you can do out of there. I like something that's going to give you that possibility of, all right, these are what you can do.
Sure.
Because it's like, okay, I can do this. Oh, wait, I can't because of the dice. Yeah,
right.
No, that's annoying.
I think this is another one where I think we should talk about the breakdown real quick. Ease of play is Takenoko.
Easily.
Art and production is Takenoko.
Takanoko.
But meaningful choice is definitely Istanbul.
Istanbul.
Replay value I feel is Istanbul as well because even though Takenoko has variable tiles,
And it does
like
have one expansion.
it does have one expansion. Well, Istanbul has two. Um,
Yeah, and just remember what I mentioned earlier.
yep.
Just out of the base box, there's more to it.
Yeah, there's more modulation in that alone, and then also immersion. Like, I mean, when you're sending people to jail, like other family members, and doing
Mm-hmm.
that, like you
I
feel like
think
you're trading the resources.
I think immersion goes to Istanbul slightly and
Yeah,
barely.
yeah,
Like you're saying, the theme matching the Mexicanism. You mentioned it when you were talking about Takanoko. It's
yeah.
abstract. It's
It is.
there, but it's really abstract.
I don't feel like I'm a gardener. Like, I mean, the idea is you're playing with gardeners and then growing bamboo, and then the panda is eating the bamboo, and
Yeah.
but knowing which ones it's eaten, that immediately like I get why they had to do it from a
Mm-hmm.
design perspective, but it's almost anti-thematic, like knowing like what kind of bamboo it eats. Yeah, it's odd, but
I
so
think the player interaction is where Istanbul wins this.
yeah,
Memorable moments, I think Takanoko will lend more to memorable moments because it's cute and people are going to talk
sure,
and you're going to get a lot more family interaction with this one. But I think the player interaction when it comes to like the table talk with Istanbul is, why are you sitting up there? Why are you going over there? Don't go over there. I need
no,
no.
no,
Or I'm going to put this guy over here. You're going to go in jail. Whoa, oh, I got it. I'm going to get the last 8 gems or that 6th gem, and I'm going to win this. And next thing I know, someone snakes it from me.
yep,
So
yep, no, I think
a
Istanbul is
lot more play
brilliant.
interaction. You'd be surprised. We talk about like dry, dusty Euros, and Istanbul is pretty much that. But this is one of the few that does lead itself to player interaction.
Yeah, well, it's because of what Rudiger Dorn designs. He takes like a simple mechanism, like this is just get resources traded in for technically victory points, right? But the way everything interacts with each other and how you move around the board is unlike any other game. It's brilliant. Yeah, so Istanbul, do we agree?
I agree.
It moves on, knocking out Takenoko. And now the last one, Ticket to Ride Europe versus Rajas of the Ganges.
I think
And
we're going to get into a fist fight for this one.
this will be tricky. And Daniel, you'll be leading the argument today.
All right, let's see which one I get here. Well, I'm refreshing so I can close the poll.
All right.
Oh yeah, I need to make sure I move this over here. And I guess I'm getting Rajas of the Ganges because I don't know where the other people went down there. It fell out of the hat.
Well, if there's one reason, yeah, I guess. Or does that mean you get Ticket to Ride because it jumped out at you? You know.
Well, I pulled Rajas of the Ganges is the one I saw. I didn't know where the other one went. So.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Go ahead and argue Rajas.
Rajas of the Ganges.
Rajas.
All right, just to make sure I got stuff here. Hey, this one was actually our highly voted on the poll.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this is going to be hard for me because I really love Ticket to Ride Europe.
Yep.
But Rajas of the Ganges, I think, is one of the most fun I've had recently with games. And sorry if you hear my dog whining.
It's fine. We don't.
So, but it's really thinky. It's the most fun I've had recently with board games. I think I played it early 2020, late 2019. I'm not exactly sure when I did play it. It was before all the lockdown, and 2020 seemed like it lasted forever. But it's really fun. It's a really thinky game. There are so many choices in this game. Yes, you're kind of beholden to the dice rolls because they're your workers when you're collecting them, and you've got to put them in certain spots. But that's fine. There's many games that are dice-driven worker-type games. So it's not as bad as when we were talking about Takanoko, where, hey, one of your actions is specifically this, is that you get your dice, you get them, you find out where they're going to go, and what makes sense to what you're doing. And you got that little fun little puzzle all to yourself, and you're collecting the tiles and trying to meet them in certain ways. I love that. Really well produced. One of the best produced games on this list,
Sure.
especially for being kind of recent and not from a big company that we've talked about. I
Yeah.
mean, they're huge, but they're not
Yeah. R&R
big.
games.
Yeah, they're not like super big company here. I like it. I think it's a beautiful game. It's for all the colors in there. There's only a slight problem for the color blindness. It's not too bad. My one gripe really with this game is that when it comes down to the graphic design, I'm fine with it. It's understandable, but it's a bit busy, and for people who are new to learning it and who are playing it, it can be overwhelming because there's so much going on just in the graphic design alone. Because you got your personal stuff over here, and you got your big board over there. So, take it how you want. I really do enjoy this game. It's probably I've only played it once, and that's how much I remember it and how much I want to get a copy because I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah.
But it's one. Do I want to buy a copy because my rules that I've talked about before, where probably other people are going to have it. So, but Rajas the Ganges, phenomenal game.
This is on my list of one that I definitely want to buy. Yeah. Because this was one of those ones where as soon as I was done with the first time I ever played it, I was like, I can't believe I haven't played this yet. This is brilliant. But it's going against...
I do have to say this about Rajas the Ganges. If you're a Feld fan in point salad style games, you would dig this because it gives you that feel but does something different.
Yeah. This is a perfect example of why I want to try other Marcus and Inca brand games. Because I've played a few of theirs before and I liked them. Like I had Murano. That was a really interesting game. But I ended up getting rid of it. I didn't like it that much. But this one is one that's on my list 100%. I need to get it. And you and I have been enjoying Rise of Queensdale up until like last year. So, I mean, that's, once again, Euro. A Euro Legacy game even. But it's going against the networking game. The one that if you say network and route building, stick it right.
It's the what everybody talks about,
Yeah, I don't think we need to argue it. This might I really do think that I think Ticket to Ride stands on its own. It needs to move on.
I agree with you. I do want to make some points about Ticket to Ride real quick. I've mentioned this a lot of times. Colorblindness. You and me are both colorblind. A lot of these games have been, my knock on them is because they're not inclusive to colorblind people.
Yep.
Ticket to Ride
is
one of the first ones that were really good about this. Yeah, some of the colors look alike and I have a hard time seeing the colors. Well, you know what they did? They put the shapes on the routes, like a little cross or an X or whatever you want to do on the routes, as well as the tickets. So you don't have to go by the colors. You could be like, okay, this is a circle, that's what I'm trying to play. That's where I'm putting my trick. Phenomenal.
And the pieces that they use the kinds that the color palette that they use are the kind that we can both see. Yeah, and I think that they're bright enough where anybody could.
If you're going to do red and greens, what every game does, go one darker, one lighter. So if you're going to use red, go dark red or light red, and do the opposite for green. Go if it's dark red, go light green. Yep.
Same with like blues and purples. Like have a light blue, dark purple, or vice versa. So that way you at least get that contrast. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, and they knew that going into it, and they made just. I mean,
and the thing
it hurts
going
me
from the
because
original Ticket to Ride, which was what? Well, we just
2004.
talked about 15 years for Ticket to Ride Europe this year. This is something that came out 15 years ago, and then we talked about a game, Takenoko, which is what 5-6 years ago, and it's probably one of the worst colorblind friendly games I've ever played.
It's older than that. It's probably about 8 or 9 years, but still.
Takenoko is not 8 or 9 years because it was coming out when I first got into board gaming, which was 2014.
Okay, I'll check it while we're still making the argument, but yeah, I mean, it hurts me because I do really like Rajas.
Yeah, no, it hurts me too.
I think, I mean, it's just it's not even worth 2011. Just Takenoko. So 10 years old.
Recently, I came in 2014, so it was only 3 years old. So it's what, 10 now?
It's 10 years old.
It's still more recent than Ticket to Ride and Ticket to Ride Europe, and they were colorblind friendly.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they had no right not to, but oh well, what can you do? So, do we agree?
So,
Ticket to Ride moves on. Europe. Ticket to Ride Europe.
Yep, and it's going to be facing Istanbul. Oy.
All right. So as a quick break right in between our next rounds, we're going to talk real quick about the 4 games that were eliminated and how many votes they got from our viewers.
And I just want to remind everybody, this was a little late, so the votes are a little skewed because they're earlier.
Yep.
Or because it's taking a while for them to come in. However, our transit taxis, underwater cities, and Takanoko were all tied with 0 votes.
Yep.
Mind you, we don't have a lot of votes this time around. However,
Yep.
I must rephrase that. Takanoko did not have 0 votes. I just refreshed it. It has 1.
As 1. Okay.
So, Council of 4 has more votes than Takanoko, which was the honorable mention.
Right.
2-1. So yeah, the only other one that actually got votes and was actually pretty up there was Rogers of the Ganges at 2.
Okay. I can see that.
But again...
Yeah. I'm trying to find my poll again. There it is, finally. Alright. Yeah,
again,
about the same.
It was late. We only put it up about 30 minutes before we started recording.
Right. As I just refreshed it, Takanoko just got a vote.
For an hour and about 2 hours now.
Yeah. Takanoko just got a vote as I refreshed it.
And as I refreshed again, Rogers the Kenji's got a 3rd vote.
There you go. So, unfortunately, those were eliminated. Let's go on to the semifinals round.
Where we have number 1 seed Power Grid facing the number 7 seed Catan.
And we have the number 3 seed facing the number 4 seed Istanbul versus Ticket to Ride Europe. Daniel, you are starting us off this round. Power Grid versus Catan. I know you dislike both of them.
I have to argue one of these games.
Yep. Yeah. So at least it makes it easy to choose. You neither you don't dislike one more than the other.
Yeah. I have Catan.
Okay. I bet you're happy about that.
I actually like Catan more than I like Power Grid.
Yep.
And again, I don't want to hate Power Grid, but just it's something like a good game could leave a bad taste in your mouth if something bad happens. And This is one of those things. And you could love the worst game in the world as long as you're having fun with it. Power Grid wasn't fun for me.
Yeah.
The one time I played, I know we harp about it and I give you a joke about it. It's what it is what it is. You were still new-ish to teaching board games to people. You didn't not say we couldn't do it, but you didn't explain you could, which you've gotten better about, like what you can and cannot do in games.
Yeah.
So it's just because I think we
were
one of the first gaming groups that you've ever taught before, and this was only about a month into a lot of us first learning how to play.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you guys weren't exactly new to gaming, and then that's a heavy game to go into.
Yeah, so that, like I said, I have the personal issues and stuff like that. But Catan's famous for a reason, as we mentioned before. It's highly regarded. It's made it into the mainstream media. It's much simpler than Power Grid. It allows itself to a lot more tabletop because of the interactions that it forces you to do. You're forced to negotiate. Yeah, if someone doesn't want to negotiate with you. What I like about Catan, and you've mentioned this, I don't think you mentioned it this before on the podcast itself, but when we talked about it, like offshoot, when we're doing other stuff, is that, okay, so no one wants to trade with you. You could still trade your resources with the bank. So if you, what is it, like 4-1 or 3-1 or something like that? So you're like, okay, well, I'll just get rid of these and get what I actually need out of the bank, even if no one wants to trade with me. You still not stop. I have an issue with the robber. I like what they did in Seafarer or Starfarers of Catan with the its story, I guess you could say.
Sure. Yeah.
Which leads to a little bit more choices in it, but the robber, I mean, it's not that bad. You get to move something around, you get to steal from someone and stuff like that. So
right.
It's not horrible. So
yeah.
Other than that, there's a reason Catan's famous. There's a reason why it's talking, and I know I said it's a flash in the pan, but it came out at the right time. People wanted that family game night. That wasn't Monopoly. That wasn't Risk. And Catan, because of Catan, Power Grid got famous. Because of Catan, Power Grid was able to come over from Europe and make a hit here in America. So for that, just historical purposes, I would move Catan over. It's the simpler game. It's the easier game. And you're more likely to get this one to the table than Power Grid, just because people know it.
That's fair. Okay. All right. I see your argument, and you're wrong. No, no. Power Grid, it is no doubt, and I know you don't disagree that it is the more strategic game, and it's definitely the heavier game. But is that enough to counteract all of the detractors of how heavy it is? That's up for debate, which is what we're doing. So, Power Grid. I mean, I've said it before. It does stand on its own as one of the best best like strategy games that's still being played today. It's still in production. They're still making expansions. Now, granted, they are for Catan as well, but Catan is closer to a party game than it is a strategy game in that comparison. Where you roll some dice, some people get some random resources. Now, you do still have to plan that. You know, it's not all just constantly barraging you with like you have to do the math. You have to figure out exactly how much money you have. But if that's your style of game, Power Grid is really just like perfectly nuanced for you. You know, if that's what you enjoy is those heavy economic games, that's like the kind of game like if you like the Rails series or like the train games, 18xx, like those are
Mhm.
heavy economic strategy games. This is the branch into other Euro games that you would take is Power Grid.
Yeah.
Now, I think we need to break it down because like I'm having trouble choosing between the two, and I just wanna. I think I know which one will go on, but let's double check it. Ease of play is obviously Catan.
Catan. Yeah.
Art and production is Catan as well.
Oh yeah.
Now that's not to say it's
And this for me right here will give Catan the win, and that's replay value.
yeah. It has a million more expansions. It's quicker. I don't know if it's quicker, but it does. So most Catan is 3 to 4.
Hmm.
Power
So
Grid
length of
itself is
time to
two
scale
to
as well goes to
six.
Power Grid ish.
Power Grid is 2 to 6.
Hmm.
Bigger player range. It does play about the same, excluding your experience. They are about
Yeah.
90 minutes each. Now,
Yeah.
granted, Catan is a bit quicker. A little
And I
bit.
think a big part of it too is, yeah, we talk about minimum number of plays, and they're both pretty much the same ish. But I think there's more variations in Catan, especially because of the expansions.
Yeah. I
And
I would say the
it,
modular board pushes it over that
mm-hmm,
because even though you shuffle the decks separately, you're only beholden for the power stations you're allowed to buy based on which are in the top row, and those are the lowest numbered of those.
yeah.
So they all still will come out in the same way.
I will say the one I for sure give to Power Grid is Meaningful Choice.
Yes. Yeah. There's you make one slip, you're done.
Yeah, so I give Meaningful Choice to Power Grid, but I think Catan beats it in almost every other category, and I know for sure three.
I don't know about them. I will give it replay value, but I don't think it's more immersive than building that power grid because that every phase of it is true to like building a power grid. You're planning out your city planning. You're making sure you have the right resources. You have limited money, and you're buying the
Yeah,
most
no,
efficient
I
and
get that. The theme
opportunistic.
matches the mechanism fine when you go into immersion, but the player interaction is
That's
better in
true.
Catan, and the
Okay.
memorable moments are more likely to happen in Catan
Okay.
because you're gonna talk. Honestly, we talk a lot. Yeah, we have a memorable moment when it comes to Power Grid, but it's more on the negative side than it is on the positive side. But
Yeah.
Catan, I've heard people hollering and yelling at each other and playing Starfarers, which is a different game, but I still remember when I played the original Catan, and my wife played the original Catan. We're not fans of it, but I remember more of that than other than the one bad thing from Power Grid.
Yeah. Okay. You actually have a really good point. All right. Catan moves on into the finals. Who knew
Into the
Catan would be
finals,
in the
yeah,
finals? I mean, we kind of assumed it, but
yeah,
all right. So the next one is one that hurts me the most.
yeah.
This
Those,
is
they hurt.
Istanbul versus Ticket to Ride. Let's see who gets the first argument, and that'll be me. And now I can put away my coin.
Yep, because we don't do that in the final round. You get
That's right.
Istanbul.
Istanbul. Okay. I mean, Istanbul. There's no doubt about it. It is the more strategic game. I mean, you could practically fall asleep halfway through Ticket to Ride and probably still do okay.
Yeah,
You
unless
know,
you're playing against my wife, then don't fall asleep because she'll be sneaky about
oh
it.
yeah, I mean like that's not to say that like I love hearing like the I always hear everybody's argument. It's like, well, you know, you could just draw random cards and then hope for the best and Ticket to Ride and you'll probably win. But then like people like Tom Vassell always says like, no, if you say that it's a game of chance, you come over, I will beat you every time because I am more experienced. I guarantee it. It was like if like I have the strategy down, like I already know that I will beat you, so don't even try. And I feel
Yeah.
like I'm kind of the same way. I'm pretty brutal with Ticket to Ride, unless my wife is playing. Um, which I don't take it easier on her, and she has some pretty good fight in her when it comes to that.
Yeah, I remember playing this with you, your wife, my wife, in a 4-player game, and man,
You and me
I was
might
talking
have
about
well,
Ticket to Ride.
yeah, we might have well just like we probably could have just played a different game while we're at
Yeah,
it, you know.
my wife and your wife are the most cutthroat people I've ever played
Yes.
with. And I think it was like, I think your wife got first place. My wife was just right there at second.
Mm-hmm.
You were pretty good on third. I was all the way at the back, like, hey, I play trains.
Yay, playing with trains. This is fun. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good. But I mean, Istanbul though, I love how brilliant it is. It's not the same old like who has the most points. No, it's the first to get gems, and those gems fluctuate on how you get them, and there's different opportunities for the gems depending on which you go. It's a wonderfully elegant game, and I don't think it's that much more complicated than say Catan. It's certainly more complicated than Ticket to Ride. I don't argue that one bit.
Yeah.
But Ticket to Ride is gin rummy with
Yeah.
a board. It really is all it is, a set collection. But whereas Istanbul, I adore how strategic it is, and given completely refreshing and innovative rules and mechanisms, I'm honestly kind of excited to play it right now. I do genuinely want to try it again because I just haven't played it in a while.
Well, it's funny that you're talking about that with Istanbul, and yeah, I like
Mhm.
it. I'm the same way with Ticket to Ride Europe. It's
Yeah.
and when we get down to it, it's the only Ticket to Ride I actually own.
Yeah.
It was given to me as not really a gift, but someone had it. She's like, I don't play it, so here, you want it. And so I have fond memories of it because I have fond memories of that person. They're still alive, but I just don't work with them anymore.
Mm.
But it's a phenomenal game. Really enjoy it. Me and the wife have had many memorable moments playing this. I just talked about it with you. One of them, Istanbul. It has memorable moments. It can lead to memorable moments. I think Ticket to Ride just blows it out of the water. There's a reason why it's popular still. That's why this specific copy is getting a 15th anniversary because it still sells really well.
A sequel.
There's a reason why the original Ticket to Ride got a 10th anniversary, a 15th anniversary, and still sells well.
It's like in movies when a sequel or a second or third in line gets a remake. It's like that says something. Hold on.
Yeah.
Like they're not just
I just
remaking
wanted
the
to refresh
movie.
real quick just to get our votes because I want to have it. But Ticket to Ride is probably the simplest game on this list. Maybe Takanoko is slightly simpler, but again, like you said,
complicated.
it's Rummy meets set collection. It's phenomenal. It's colorblind friendly, and that was one of my knocks to Istanbul, and there's a lot of knocks to these games, is I want games to be inclusive to everybody, and you and me have that. I don't want to say it's a disability, but I guess it can be qualified as
Yeah, it's a disability technically.
Huh?
It's considered a disability, but it's one of the least obtrusive ones.
Yeah,
like it doesn't matter.
So I want the games to be more inclusive, and Ticket to Ride has done that. It's one of the first ones that I can remember that did it. They're like, yes, we're using these colors, but we're also using these shapes to help you. That's such a simple thing that you could do. When we're going to like art production, we know which one's winning it, but right there, that graphic design to make the game more accessible to people who have some functions that make it hard. And there's a lot of people who are colorblind. It's not just our specific colorblind, which is red, green. You have people who have trouble seeing yellows and blues and different variations. My grandfather only saw gray.
Yeah. Yep.
And so this is
the solution. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is one of the first games I've done it. And so I think, as much as I like Istanbul, Ticket to Ride has to move on because it is, when you think of route building, you think Ticket to Ride. That's the first game that comes to probably 90% of people. That and maybe Power Grid.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's break it down. Ease of play.
Ticket to Ride.
Okay. Art and production.
Ticket to Ride.
Meaningful choice.
Istanbul.
Replay value. That would go to Ticket to Ride.
I think it will go to Ticket to Ride. I'm just thinking the expandability, I think, goes to Istanbul. Because I think specifically Europe only has one expansion.
Yeah, but you could use Europe in any
other
map
maps,
packs. Yeah. So technically, it has all these expansions.
Okay. Then,
it's just conveniently compatible with all those. And then also, it doesn't get minimum plays, but it does get player range and scale. It's a short game no matter who. And it plays up to 5 players, 2 to 5.
I think the longest game I've ever played of it is like an hour and a half, maybe. And that's because new people were learning the game. Yeah. It's that simple. And that was at full 5. Immersion,
I think it also beats... I think Immersion beats that as well. So either way.
Yeah. So I was going to give Immersion the Ticket to Ride as well, because just the player interaction and the memorable moments alone destroys Istanbul.
Yep. Yeah, it does. All right. So that means in our finals, it'll be Catan versus Ticket to Ride. Which one will win? We don't know. We're about to find out.
In all honesty, though, I actually like this matchup because as much as we were talking about, this is going to be difficult because these are the two of the most highly popular games.
Yeah.
And most talked about out of the relatively newer hobby, I guess you could say.
The hobby game market
started the new wave of board gaming. It was a slow burn.
Yep.
I think Ticket to Ride is the one that took it over the moon and got more and more and more.
Some quick facts of a lot of these. You ready? Okay, so first off, Ticket to Ride was one of the first biggest successes for Days of Wonder. It has sold over, I believe, over 11 million copies, if I'm not mistaken. Catan, though, is the third most selling board game of all time. Third only to Monopoly and Scrabble. It has sold more copies. I think it's somewhere around the range of 25 million copies now. Both of them are Spiel des Jahres winners, approximately 10 years apart. Pretty close. I believe Catan was 1995, and because it was released in 94, and Ticket to Ride is 2004 was the winner of that. Catan was largely popular, or largely one of the reasons why Tabletop, the show on YouTube, was one of the most popular, and it came with one of the best memes for that as well, and Wheatening the Table.
Ticket to Ride?
Yep, Ticket to Ride.
Yeah, I was going to say, because Ticket to Ride, I remember, was one of their more popular episodes.
It absolutely was, yeah. It's probably one of their most, if not the most. I haven't checked them.
And it's funny, we mentioned this before in podcast, the tabletop effect. Yep. Ticket to Ride was actually hard to find at one point because of tabletop. Yeah. Stores were actually selling out of it. Again, this is 10 years after the fact?
Now, one of the weird things, though, Catan is one of the few games that have expansions for expansions. And multiple, not just some. Like they make like the 3 to 4 player expansion, or 5-6 player expansion, and then they made Seafarers, and then the 5 to 6 player expansion for that, and then they also made an expansion for Seafarers that added like a storyline to it, and then you need like a little promo pack to play with 5 to 6 players. Like, so it has expansions for expansions for expansions. It's one of the few games that do that.
I have to say this though. Both these games have pretty much jumped the shark when you think about expansions. One has dinosaurs that affect the map in a certain way, and another one, as you mentioned, has expansions for expansions.
Yeah, it's intense. And then also, Ticket to Ride had the orange, one-time train cars. This is so much to the point. Ticket to Ride, they don't directly say this, but Level 99 made a game called Imperial that use 45 train cars in there, and they do say that you can use them in other games. It's just convenient that you can. They don't say why, just throwing that out there.
So I do have to mention another interesting fact about both of these games, that I know for a fact they can be used in classrooms.
Yes.
Ticket to Ride can be used for geography lessons, give people that kind of awareness, set collection at times too. But Catan is also about negotiation. So if you want people to learn how
Supply
to
and
do their
demand.
communication skills and stuff like that,
Mhm.
that's what Catan's for.
Yep.
And again, Ticket to Ride helps you learn geography. I know more about European geography by playing a Ticket to Ride Europe than I knew from going to school and
Right.
learning European geography.
Yep, that's right. It's supply and demand. Yeah, you gotta teach them right there. So
Yeah.
this will be a fun one. And as always with the finals, we don't pick a side for this. That's why I put away my coin. But we are gonna break it down each by category. Daniel, which one do we want to start on? Which category do we feel is already going to win?
And before we get on to that, I do want to make mention, because I just refreshed it,
Oh,
is
yes.
that Power Grid had still only one vote,
Okay.
and Istanbul had 0.
Okay. All right, that sounds good.
So when we're now breaking down into the discussions, the ones that are the easiest for us to quantify as is, Ease of Play goes to Ticket to Ride.
Okay. Yep.
Because again, it's just rummy.
Yes. And I also feel Ticket to Ride gets art and production.
I agree with you on that as well.
Yes, because that did put Days of Wonder on the map. Now.
And the other one that jumps out to me right here, right now, that we can talk about is Meaningful Choice. I think that goes to Catan.
Yes. Yep, I agree. Because how
now,
you negotiate...
the other two is what we're going to fight.
Yep. So replay value. I would be more than happy looking up expansions for Catan, but I do believe it beats Ticket to Ride, but not by much.
Yeah, if you take... Let me see here. You got Rails and Sails.
Uh-huh.
You got regular Ticket to Ride.
Yes.
You have the Nordic maps. You have the Asian maps, the African maps. What is Rails and Sails the one that has Pennsylvania?
No, it has the full map in the Great Lakes.
So there's that Pennsylvania map as well. I don't remember what that one's called specifically. I just know once I was Pennsylvania. There's the not London, but there is a UK one.
Yes. Yep. There's a Markland.
Markland is so that's 8 so far.
Are we doing the
maps? This is just off the top of my head.
Yeah, you're doing other expandalones too, or like other base sets, which is fine.
Yes, but see, we're arguing the system. Remember, we took out Ticket to Ride because Ticket to Ride Europe was already in there, but it's the system.
Yep.
And again, I could take these train cards and use on anything.
So let's see here. Ticket to Ride. I'll just do a quick number thing over here.
Now you have to take out London and New York, because those are the ones that you can't specifically use with other systems, because they're small ones.
Okay, that's fine. And then same with like Catan, the dice game, or Catan, the card game.
Yeah.
So.
And while you're looking up Ticket to Ride, I'll put up Catan.
So we'll count them up real quick. So Ticket to Ride has the base game, Europe, Nordic countries, Markland. It does have an expansion, the 1910 expansion, so we'll count the 1912 for Europe specifically. Rails and Sails is 5. We won't count the 10th anniversary. But the map pack Asia, Switzerland, there's the Pennsylvania, Switzerland, that's 10, and India. Then there's the Mystery Train expansion, which is kind of an expansion technically. New York does not count. My First Journey does not count. Alvin and Dexter does... Oh, yep, we'll count Alvin and Dexter. The Alien and Dinosaur. Heart of Africa, that is number 13. The Dice expansion, which I hear is awful. That's number 14. Netherlands, that's number 15. France and Old West, 16. We have Ticket to Ride Germany, which is 17. Fan expansion does not count. Orient Express, which is, okay, that's a promo pack for something. Japan and Italy, which is number 18. Fan expansion. Amsterdam does not count. Seattle fan expansions, I believe, are all from here. And there was, I will point out a pretty funny expansion, if I just double check. Okay. And that is, everything else looks like fan-made, I believe. But that is the Ticket to Ride Stay-at-Home Edition, which is a print-and-play version of an expansion where you can play at home. And yes, I own a copy in my board. 19 expansions and base games.
For Ticket to Ride.
For Ticket to Ride.
I think Catan wins. And I'm trying not to count the promos, but I just went to the expansion page, and yeah, if you knock out the promos, there's still a lot on here. There's 87 entries on the expansions. So let's say half of that is promos.
Yeah, half is promos. There's probably some fan variants.
Let's
Ooh.
see. They have the stay-at-home one. They have some Catan scenario stuff. I don't know if Ryan May Neckar is.
Maybe.
But then you have Cities and Knights, Legends of the Conquerors.
Uh-huh.
That's a scenario, so I'm just not going to do that one. And this looks like a promo. They're scenarios for like seafarers. There's a lot on this list.
Yeah.
So how about we say expandability is a push?
Yeah, we'll say they're both obscene. Now, Ticket to Ride is 2 to 5. That's a 4-player range. Range and scale, that goes to Ticket to Ride.
Technically, Catan base by itself is only 3 to 4. You literally
Right.
have to get expansions to do 5 to 6.
Right. So, in order to match the range, you need an expansion. So that means replay value. With the push, minimum number of play for full experience, though? Is that a push?
No, I would actually give that one to Catan.
Okay.
Just because the expansions actually do different things, other than like the little fun that you can have with Dexter and the dice and stuff like that.
No, each map has a new mechanism. A new very strict...
Europe does have a new mechanism as well.
Yeah, but although the modular board in Catan, I think, pushes it.
Just out of the base, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Alright, so then replay value goes to Catan then. So we're at 2 and 2. Immersion. Wow. Okay, so in Ticket to Ride, we're all rich train barons building routes. And then Catan, we are settlers of Catan, harvesting resources that are randomly allotted to us, but building civilizations, which isn't super unthematic.
I don't know.
Theme matching mechanism, push?
Push.
Okay.
Push. I agree. Because they're both very abstracting when you think about it. And to me, Catan's more about yelling at the other player for not giving you your sheet that you want. And Ticket to Ride is like, why did you take those? I needed those. Or the third locomotive comes out and wipes the whole thing. It's like, ah!
Yeah. No, I agree. Okay. Then, so theme matching mechanisms is a push. Player interaction, table talk. That's got to be Catan.
I'll give that to Catan slightly, because there is a lot of interaction when it comes to Ticket to Ride. There are quiet moments.
Yeah.
I'll admit.
But the game doesn't bring it.
Somebody takes the cards that you want, or someone takes the route that you want, or it's like, I was going to go there, I just made it, you took it away from me.
Right.
There is a lot of interaction. But Catan has it in the actual game.
Yeah, it has it as part of the mechanism, and that's not... And that makes, I mean, it created the meme wood for sheep, so that always is a benefit to that. And then memorable moments.
So I think this is going to be just an outright push, because we got push on theme matching mechanism.
Yep.
We got Catan winning the player interaction, but I think memorable moments goes to Ticket to Ride. You mentioned it earlier, and Ann Wheaton hitting the table and destroying that. Everybody who watched Tabletop did that. This is probably a lot of more people nowadays first interaction with mainstream board gaming is Ticket to Ride. I know I've had more memorable moments with Ticket to Ride than pretty much most of the games on this list.
Okay. So then, what does that break it down to? That means that it's a push for our debate. They're both equally good. Which one got more votes, Daniel?
All right, so I closed it out when we started. In a 3-point difference, Ticket to Ride Europe wins 4-1.
There we go. That tells it, and it really makes sense. It had to win networking and route building. It really did.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree.
I'm not mad that it won.
Don't get me wrong. Catan put up a fight. I mean, that was probably one of our closest ones.
Yes, agreed. So, well done to Ticket to Ride for winning our top 8 debate for networking and route building games. This has been a fun debate. surprisingly not as controversial as we originally thought. I thought there was going to be some upsets in here, but not too many. But, it made sense that Catan went on. It really did, up
It
to that
does,
point.
yeah. No.
Cool. So with that being said,
So this is an interesting one, though. I have to talk about before we finish this up.
yep,
This is probably one of the few times we've seen a 4 seed and a 7 seed make it all the way to the finals. Usually our number one is number one for a reason. It carries its weight there.
Yep.
Or there's been some nice upsets here and there. But this is interesting. But when you look at the list, these are some big games on here. Other than, let's say Takanoko is popular because of the Panda, and Underwater Cities is popular for a reason. It's number 2 on the thing because of its headiness. But, I mean, you got Ticket to Ride on here. You got Istanbul on here. A lot of people talk about that one. Catan, one of the most famous games ever.
Yep, hands
And
down.
Power Grid, pretty famous as well. You
Yeah.
got some Spiel winners. This is very eclectic.
Yeah, definitely. And then we got Kennerspiel even in there. Rahaz,
Yeah.
I think, won Kennerspiel. I know Istanbul did. No, it didn't. Rahaz, it was nominated.
Because I think, was it the same year Wingspan came out and it lost to Wingspan? Or was it the year before?
It might have been the same year. It was close.
Yeah.
It wasn't very long ago. So, well done to Ticket to Ride. That makes a lot of sense. If you ever want to join us on one of our live episodes, you totally can. Join us at twitch.tv/everydayboardgames.
You can always find the video re-uploads of this on our YouTube channel at Everyday Board Games Podcast. These will be usually implemented the following Monday and Wednesday. The Chits and Giggles will be on the following Monday, and the top 8 debate will be found on the Wednesdays. And if you do find us on YouTube, give us a like and a subscribe. The audio versions can also be found on any podcast platforms, mostly, under Everyday Board Game Podcast. This includes Spotify, Google, Amazon Music, Podbean, and we're still trying to work on iTunes.
We love hearing from our fans and our viewers, so if you have any interesting topics for future top 8 debates, you totally submit them to us. Email us at everydayboardgames2020@gmail.com.
And you can also do the same thing by contacting us on Twitter at EBG Podcast.
So, as always, we want to thank you for tuning in. My name is Daniel.
And I've been Daniel.
And thank you for watching Everyday Board Games.
Have a good one.